welcome to a very different video for me. If you guys are crocheters, welcome. My name's Haley. I am not a professional, so if you're looking for professional advice, you probably came to the wrong place. But if you are new to crochet and you find this kind of content interesting, I wanted to share with you guys about my temperature blanket from 2022. So at the beginning of this year, I thought it would be really fun to try out something new, find a hobby, something that was different, something I could do in my free time, something I could do to maybe decrease my screen time. And so I started crocheting. I saw some people on TikTok who had done temperature blankets in 2021. And I thought that was such a really cool idea. And so I took it and ran with it. And would I recommend doing a temperature blanket as your very first crochet project? Probably not, but I did. And I think it turned out pretty decent. I'll show you guys some footage of the entire thing so you guys can see.
All right, guys, this is my 2022 crochet granny square temperature blanket. So as you can see, we start with January. That little gray square marks the beginning of the year. We have January, and then row 2 it continues January, and then the gray square marks the beginning of February. Continue row 3, row 4, gray square means March. And then gray square, April. Row, another row, gray square, May. And then we've got a whole row and then a little bit of the next row, June. And then we get to this gray square, we are at July. Then we get to August. And then the end of this means September, starts the next row. And then we get to October, November, and then December, and then these last 2 rows are December, and then we get to the gray square marking the very end of the year. So there is my completed temperature blanket. Let me tell you guys how I did it and some tips on starting your own.
So I did granny squares for this blanket. I did 1 granny square for every day. The center of the square was the high temperature for the day in my hometown, and the outside of the granny square was the low temperature for the day in my hometown. That was not my own idea. I got it from another YouTube video, and I'll link any videos that I use to help me out on this project in the description box so you guys can go there and learn from someone who knows a lot more than I do. Yeah, I pretty much learned everything through YouTube tutorials. I had never crocheted before the beginning of this year. And so you can kind of see that throughout my blanket, how my squares at the very beginning of the year are very messy and very loose. And then by the time you get to the end of the year, they're pretty uniform, and they are tighter knit. And so they are being held together a little bit better. And when you guys see a close-up, you can tell that there are some loose threads here and there. I haven't taken the time to go through and weave all of those in yet. I will, but it just hasn't happened yet. But I wanted to share with you guys what I did, what colors I used, and all of that stuff, in case you're interested in doing your own in 2023. So I got all of my yarn at Hobby Lobby, and I just went one day in January, the beginning of January, and just filled up a basket. And I tried to pick a color for every temperature range I could think of. And I went with kind of a more like muted color palette. I'm not a huge bright colors kind of girl, although if you watch my video for my 2023 temperature blanket, I went completely off the rails and did super bright colors. So I wanted to try something different, but I really love this color palette I did this year. So I did, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Who's calling me? Telemarketer, go away. I did 10 different temperature, actually I ended up doing 11 temperature ranges because I decided in July I needed an extra one. So my first temperature range was 0 to 19 degrees. I live in South Carolina and it got below 20 degrees 1, 2, 3, 4 days this whole year. So I did not need to do anything below that. So I used this color called Linen for 0 to 19 degrees. All of my yarn is, I should tell you guys what I used. It is the Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek Low Pill Fiber yarn. It is 100% acrylic and I think it's medium weight. I really liked this yarn. It was very easy to work with. It's very soft, but it's quite affordable as well. It's $3.99 a skein, but Hobby Lobby puts their yarn 30% off all the time. So I would just try to get it when it was on sale. And most of my colors I got through the year with a single skein. There were a couple colors I had to get 2 of, especially like the yellows and the greens because those were used a lot. But yeah, other than that, it was not super expensive to make. So the linen color is this kind of like taupey beige color. And then for 20 to 29 degrees, I use the color French Lilac, which is this kind of like muted purpley color. For 30 to 39 degrees, I use the color Purple Haze, which is like a lavender, really pretty. For 40 to 49 degrees, I use the color Crisp Air, and I am like running out of this one. I have a teeny bit left. I barely had enough to finish the year out, but this is Crisp Air. It's like a light sky blue kind of color. 50 to 59 degrees, I use the color Viridescent. Is this kind of like a light seafoam kind of color. For 60 to 69 degrees, I use the color Sage, which is a light green, which is just a pile at this point. For 70 to 79 degrees, I use the color Wheat, which is just kind of a light yellowy color. For 80 to 85 degrees, this was kind of a mistake I made, but I kind of thought that like I would use the 80 to 85 and 85 to 80, no, or whatever, 80 to 84, and then 85 to 89. I thought the 80s would be very common, so I chose 2 different colors, which makes it kind of interesting that I actually didn't end up using these colors all that much. But for 80 to 84 degrees, I use the color Clay, which is like it's basically the color clay. I mean, really, is this color. And then for 85 to 89 degrees, I use the color Spice, which is this kind of like terracotta reddish color, which I think is really, really pretty. This is probably my favorite color in the whole thing, and I didn't get to use it a whole lot. And then my original plan was to do 90 plus in burgundy, but we had several days of summer where it got above 100. So I decided to add another category for 100 plus, and I used this dark gray color for that. So that is my color scheme. I also used, I don't have much of it left, but this light gray color I also used for my month markers. So I did a marker at the beginning / end of every month, so one between each month. And then I also had one at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So it was marker the whole month of January, marker whole month of February, marker whole month of March. And then when you got to the end, it was marker December and then marker. And so it ended up making a perfect rectangle grid-wise. It's not perfect because my squares are handmade. They're all different sizes. But it did end up making a perfect grid. It was, I think, it was 18 by 21. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 18 by 21. And I got the pattern from somebody else on YouTube, so it was not original. But it worked out perfectly because it ended up with 378 squares. So 365 for each day and then 13 markers. So it worked out really, really well. I ended up using that dark gray color again as a border around the edge of the outside. I thought that would be kind of a nice way to just hold it all together. I felt like it was kind of flimsy and falling apart and it needed something to just kind of hold it together. So I did that, and I'm really excited about the way it turned out. Can't wait to use it as a nice little throw. It's a good size for a throw. It's not really big enough to put on a bed or anything, but it's a cute little throw, and it was super fun to make. And it really got me into crocheting. I've done some different projects since I started this, and I've really had a lot of fun doing it. So it's been really fun. Let me show you guys how I kind of kept track of my days.
So this is the grid that I made at the beginning of the year just to kind of make sure I had enough space for every day of the year. The white square with a W just means white, and I ended up not using white, ended up using the light gray there, but that marks the beginning of the month. And then you've got a square for each day in the month, and then square for the middle. And then basically each color I just highlighted in a different color so I could just make sure it ended up working out, and it did. So that's the grid. That's kind of how it all worked out. This is my color key, and I changed it a bazillion times, but this is what I ended up with. And I didn't end up adding the dark gray on there, but I did in fact use dark gray for 100 plus. And then this is what I did to keep up with the temperature each day. So I have a little printout calendar of the year, and I put the high temperature, the low temperature, and then what color I should use for each of those temperatures. And I noticed I did not do check marks until February. That's interesting. So I guess in January, like, I kept up with where I was pretty well. But by the time I got to February, I started getting behind, and I would do like 10 days at a time to catch up. And so I would start putting checks where I left off so I could see where I was. So yeah, every month kind of looks like that. I just did, each day I just put the high temperature and the low temperature, and I spilled coffee on it at some point. But yeah, there it is. I didn't check it off at the end. I just kind of finished and realized that I ran out of room. So obviously I was done. But yeah, that's what I did to keep up with the days and temperatures and all of that. And I'll just give you guys a little better close-up of the whole blanket. My tripod's sitting on it, but as you can see, that is kind of the look of it. If you want to get a closer up on what each square kind of looked like, there they are. And then to connect them to each other, I just used a tapestry needle and connected them to each other just by like weaving them together. So yeah, there's the whole thing. And then for the border, there's the border. I just did a double crochet into each loop all the way around. So there it is. There's my blanket. If you guys have any questions about what I did or want to know more, just leave a comment down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was helpful. I'll definitely drop some videos that helped me out, some pointers. Let me turn the camera around. I'm not even going to bother with the tripod at this point. A couple pointers just for you. If you're starting out with crochet and you've never crocheted before, like me at the beginning of this year, don't give up when the tutorials seem extremely hard. One thing I recommend is just put your tutorial on like 25% speed or 50% speed or whatever speed you want, to just slow it way down so you can see exactly what the person's doing. It makes it a bazillion times easier. It is really stressful when you watch it in real time. So slow it down so you can really see what they're doing, so you can get the hang of it. It's really not as hard as it seems. And once you get the hang of it, like, you can whip out these squares in like 10 minutes. So it's really nice, really easy, not too bad. And then I also forgot to show you what hook I used. If you're new to crochet, you may not know. If you're not new, this is general information, but I did use a 5.5, I don't know if y'all can see that, 5.5 millimeter hook to make this blanket. You could use 6, you could use 5 if you wanted it to be a little tighter, but I generally used 5.5. I think there were a couple of times where I couldn't find a 5.5 and used a 6, but yeah, 5.5 millimeter was really perfect for the yarn that I used. And just a close up on this yarn, on the yarn itself, it says to use 5.5, I'm pretty sure. No, it says use 6. The yarn itself says 6, but the tutorial I watched said to use 5.5. So I personally found that the 5.5 was a little bit better. It made tighter squares. But the 6 works perfectly fine as well if you want to have looser squares. So yeah, hit me up if you have questions, comments, concerns. And if you'd want to see more about this, I will be posting about what I'm doing in 2023 in a really, really soon video. That did not come out right. In a video coming very soon. Thank you guys for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.